It says it's off air.
Well, now it says live.
Now it's, yeah, let's see here.
I think it's cooking. Mine says live.
Yep, we're good.
It's up.
And now call the Norton Special Council meeting Monday, August 20th, 2018 to order. The time is 7:03. Please stand for Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silent prayer.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Clerk, call the roll, please.
Mr. Gaynor?
Here.
Mr. McClone?
Here.
Mr. Courant?
He's excused.
Mr. Towsley?
Here.
Mr. Kernan?
Here.
Mr. Pilat?
Here.
Ms. Whipke? Here.
We're going to go straight into an executive session here to, if approved by council. So at this time, I would like to make a motion to enter into an executive session to conference with an attorney for the city concerning disputes involving the city that are subject of pending or imminent court action as defined in ORC section 121.22G3 and section 3.123 of the Norton City Charter. Acquisition of property as defined in ORC section 121.22G2 and section 3.122 of the Norton City Charter, and employment matters as defined in ORC 121.22G1 and section 3.121 of the Norton City Charter.
A second.
Motion second to enter into executive session. Any discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Pilat?
Yes.
Ms. Whipke?
Yes.
Mr. Gaynor?
Yes.
Mr. McClone?
Yes.
Mr. Towsley?
Yes.
Mr. Kernan?
Yes.
And I'd like to invite the mayor, Mr. Messner, Mr. Markey,
And Mr. Fowler will be joining
Mr.
us.
Flower when he gets here. And just to everybody in attendance here, please keep in mind that the meeting is being aired live, so the microphones are left on during executive session. So if you don't want your conversations recorded, then you might want to step outside. Temporary in recess.
Haven't seen you for a long time. Why is he driving down the road anymore?
I know. Wow. I feel like
Been busy.
that's all I do is run anymore.
You guys need to stop with the Olive Garden stuff because I'm going to end up going there after the meeting.
Have you tried their Zupa salmon soup?
They're what?
Zupa salmon soup? It's the
No.
potatoes and the sausage.
That sounds really good.
I learned how to make it, and it's been on from there.
I love that soup.
It's Zupa salmon. I don't even have to get nothing else here. I have to get to soup and I'll be happy. And we grew up on rice, that's on my mom, because she used to make letters with Spanish rice.
to share with you, I went to my niece and my dad, they called her last week. So, I like it, so cute. So, when I say dinner, and this was pizza. Oh my God. So, I flew with it up, because we were long, I guess, older. So, we went to restaurants, so that's good, that's good. I didn't even look, I had some.
Oh, you did not kid.
Pizza.
And I thought you didn't eat that.
I looked and it was just,
I read it.
it was just olive oil, tomatoes and pizza. I said, turkey,
You don't even have to go to this one.
and a drink. I had iced tea, he had a pop. Oh, yeah.
But this was, that was like 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Oh. Oh.
I had to go there, just our office there. It's like a little party.
There's a,
So I go to a fancy steak shop.
Oh my God.
there's a university with a sister.
Their cost of living must be high.
She bought, it has to be 20, she bought a house that was less than houses we paid her 20. Now
That's-
she could probably
That's
sell
like
it.
Long Island.
Yeah, same
I
seen them last a long time.
Mm.
Insulation against perceived insinuations.
asked her, she, well, not that I know of.
Hey, how are you?
And then I've given her your number.
Yeah, that's okay. I'll call her one day. I'm going on vacation. I'll come when I get back from vacation. I'll call her.
Again? Didn't you just get back?
This time I have to take my wife. Oh, is that on camera?
Trying to get people and running off on vacations all the time. I never seen
Sorry.
anything my side.
Hey, Ron. Maybe you know.
I thought maybe that might have happened.
I said, well, I gotta ask you about it.
Yeah, I will.
Just making sure.
Yep.
I don't know what we're doing now.
I'm sorry.
2.5 weeks.
Thank you, Mr. Messmer.
This is for the
It's about
September 8th. This is in October.
October 15th.
Got my pin died.
About 7 weeks.
You were banging around.
Where is the wedding?
It's gonna be in a barn in, over by Coyce Park.
The wedding also?
No, St. Augustine.
Okay, St. Augustine.
Which is yours
Yes,
too.
yes, yeah.
My wife made all few things. Did all the way up and down. She did it all. Every third.
Oh, okay.
Every third. I know. It's a lot. It's crazy.
What's this?
We had to go in there when they put them all in and see what it looked like. She did a great job.
Down there.
Yeah, just send out an email if you would.
Sure.
You guys good?
Yep.
And now reconvene the special meeting. Time is 8:31. Moving on, Committee of the Whole, general topics of discussion. Fire Department purchase of heart monitors, turnout gear. You guys all have a copy of the proposed ordinance there. The turnout gear has been on a continual replacement program over 5 years. And that totals about 17.5, I think it is. And so it's just time for that next replacement piece of that. This is the fourth year or fifth year, Ron? Fourth. So fourth of 5-year replacement program. And turnout gear typically has a life expectancy of approximately 10 years. Any questions?
Mr. President, I did have one question.
Yes.
I'd spoken to the chief right before the meeting, and I told him I don't have anything against it. I just was hoping to see, he told me there's basically down to just 2 companies that they can get quotes from. They had 3, but one went out of business. And unless I'm not reading it right, I don't see the second quote. I just need it for reference.
Okay.
For both the
Turnout
both
gear and
items. It would help me know.
that they,
Border control.
Right.
Yeah, so we'll double check. I thought the chief had emailed that out last week.
We,
but,
we did get it.
yeah, because
By email,
I
I
had
think.
asked him
He
for
told me
it.
we did, and if someone could get me another copy,
Yeah.
because I'm,
Okay.
either I'm just, I don't know, I can't find it.
Yeah,
so.
we thought that council would ask to see what the other bids were, so we wanted to make sure we got it out, but we'll double check and make sure
I
you
would
get a copy.
appreciate that.
Well, physio and striker, those are 2 different things, aren't they?
Those
Or-
are, those are the monitors.
The
Those are
monitors?
yes.
Okay, then the turnout, okay.
Yeah, I think fire decks was one, but I don't remember the other second one.
Yeah, we'll get you that other copy there.
Thank you.
I sent it to the council clerk, the monitors. I'll send the other one here. I just sent it. Like I just
okay,
looked at
great.
it, so.
Cool.
I very well may have it, and I apologize if I do, but it would help me.
All right. Any other questions? Hearing none, then I will move to add this to council's next agenda and waiving the second and third. And the reason for waiving the second and third on that is as soon as we approve it, the company is willing to supply the turnout gear or put the order in and get things rolling. So,
And then there's emergency language on that?
yes.
I'll second.
Motion second. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Pelot,
Yes.
Mr. Kernan,
Yes.
Ms. Whipke,
Yes.
With regards to the heart monitors, this also includes, it's for 3 heart monitors and 2 automated CPR pieces of equipment. This will free up one individual as they're taking care of a situation. Once they have this apparatus on an individual performing the CPR, then they'll be able to go ahead and assess and take care of other things. So it's like having an extra pair of hands right there if needed. The total for these was, I believe, $107,000.
Yes.
107.6.
Yeah. So
What's the life expense on those?
the chief said that they vary. The last ones that we had well over 10 years. He said this one, the set that we currently have, has 10 years on it.
Okay.
And he said it's kind of like a cell phone technology. When they come out with new technology, then they kind of start obsoleting the parts and the service and the programming of the current ones, and that's where we're at right now.
Okay.
He had said in Border Control that he hoped to get 10 years out of them.
And the chief was also able to secure moving the payments out over 5 years at 0 interest with this company. And they said the same thing. Once the order's placed, they'll get things moving, and we won't have to wait very long for the equipment. There's no questions. I will move to add this to council's next agenda, same way, waiving second and third with emergency.
I'll second.
Motion and second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Pelot,
Yes.
Ms. Whipke,
Yes.
Mr. Kernan,
Yes.
All right. Next item, lawsuit settlements. Justin, would you like to elaborate?
What's that? Houston. Yes, Houston Road. I'll probably have Mr. Fowler do it since
Okay.
I was
Okay,
not involved
that's
in the
fine.
lawsuit.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
This is the Houston Road settlement for the initial repair and then ultimately the replacement of the pavement that was damaged during the accident by the concrete mixer.
When was that damage originally?
Don't quote me on the exact date, but it was on or about October 7th
Okay,
last year.
last year.
Yes.
All right. And essentially what they've agreed to, or potentially agreed to, was $15,000 settlement that covers the city's cost for temporary repair and final repair to bring the road back up to what it should be. This road had just been repaved, completely repaved just before the incident, so this will cover all the city's costs there.
Like within months of it being finished.
Yeah. Any questions? I move to add this to ordinance 82 to council's next agenda waiving second and third with emergency. That'll allow us to get our money back sooner.
I'll second.
Motion and second. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Pelot?
Yes.
Ms. Whipke?
Yes.
Mr. Kernan?
Yes.
Next item, review of charter amendments. Mr. Towsley?
Thank you, Mr. President. Before break, we were given some suggestions and recommendations by the administration for multiple changes in the charter. And any of council's input obviously is welcomed and wanted.
Well, I believe that administration was looking at maybe just addressing 4 items. Is that correct?
That's what I was about to get to.
Okay.
I was going to say that any input from council is welcome, but was speaking with the administration, they've narrowed it down to a handful of changes that they think are more important right now. So please correct me if I'm wrong from our conversation, but the first one would be Section 308 of the charter, which would deal with compensation of council.
Yeah. Mr. Towsley, would you like me to go
Yeah,
through the ones
if
we
you would,
discussed?
if
Sure.
you would, maybe you have a better order if I'm
Sure.
a little out of order.
No, it's okay. So I think it's different categories of changes. So the one that we're concerned with first is the vacancy of a council member, and we had talked about this. We had some experience with this provision, and we had talked about it as well last year after the Charter Review Commission. Basically, the idea is to get a council member appointed as quickly as possible to represent, if it's a ward or an at-large council person, to get the constituents represented as quickly as possible, with the recognition that if it's within 9 months, or there should be different procedures if it's less than 9 months or more than 9 months. But what we can't have happen is if it's a 3-3 stalemate, which we had happen on this council previously, that someone goes unrepresented for 5, 6, 7 months while we drag feet. And so we see that as valuable to change that procedure. The procedure was changed previously. It didn't work. And so the recommendation, again, just the recommendations, council to vote on and ultimately the people to approve, would be to look at that procedure and fine tune it if possible. So that's the first one.
And that also eliminates the need for a special election incurring the cost the way we did last time.
Exactly right. So it tells you to kick the election to, you appoint a person temporarily, and then it moves the election to either a designated special election date where you could potentially have cost sharing, or the next general election. That procedure is a little more involved than that, so I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but you have that Section 306 language there for you. The next one that we're interested in, it's really 2 sections, but deals with the same concept. One is 502E, and the second is 503B, and that deals with competitive bidding and the procedure for letting contracts. And right now, if you look at 502E, that is actually titled competitive bidding, and there's a competitive bidding requirement there. And then 503B has sort of a different take on it, but also appears to be a different competitive bidding requirement similar to it. What we would want to do is streamline the competitive bidding, move it back to competitive bidding that's required under state law. That's not to evade or to quick push projects through council. Really what that is there are certain projects that just aren't well suited to competitive bidding, and to say that's a strict dollar limit limits you to the type of contract that you're doing, and sometimes like purchases of services, there may only be one contractor. There's things that competitive bidding just doesn't make a lot of sense. It doesn't prevent council from, when we come to you and ask for authorization, to say, hey, what are you doing? Go competitively bid this. You're a bunch of knuckleheads. But it just wouldn't require it by charter. An example would be, any kind of small building. If it's a small building under $50,000, under state law, you wouldn't have to get that. You wouldn't have to get plans and specs and bid it. Under our charter provision currently, if it's a small building under 50,000, you theoretically would have to go out, get plans and specs drawn by an architect ahead of time, and then go and let out a bid based on material prices. And sometimes that doesn't make a lot of sense, and it doesn't actually save you money. It costs you more money because you're going to pay for the materials, pay for the design, pay for the advertisement. So it doesn't suit you well. the trade-off here is it lowers the dollar limit on what would come to council, and we actually talked with Mr. Towsley about the concept of, we'd even be comfortable lowering that down to 5,000. Whatever controls you see are necessary to help rein that in, but that's one provision. We'd like to not have conflicting requirements and just have one set of requirements that goes forward. So those are those set of changes.
Could I ask a question on that?
Yeah.
Real quick? On 503B.
Yeah.
Unless I'm misunderstanding it, the only minor objection I think I would have on that is it seems it took out the council majority vote and only requires Board of Control. Am I correct? on
Yeah.
that?
So if you look at so that is true, but if you look at 502E, the last sentence of 502E added back in the council vote. So I just moved the language just moved it to the right section.
Okay, so it would still, even though it doesn't state it word for word, it would still require council.
Correct. So that because Board of Control is really, so I go back and forth about this. Norton does Board of Control differently than anybody else that I'm aware of. Board of Control is an administrative approval of a contract. And that administrative approval of a contract is there so that no department head can enter into a contract over a certain dollar level without people in the city being aware of it. And it's really just a protection. It's an administrative protection mechanism. Council approval is its own thing, right? And they've sort of been intermingled in Norton, which is fine, but it doesn't really serve a lot of purpose. So the idea would be you'd move that council approval to 502E, which talks about competitive bidding and really count what council is required to do. And then 503B, which is approval of contracts, just deals with Board of Control, and it's not two separate requirements. So that's the idea, Mr. Towsley. The last sentence says if it's over 10,000, it has to come to council.
Okay, and then one more quick question. Would this, on the ballot, would this be two changes or one?
Two changes.
Would it be two?
It'd be two
Okay.
changes, separate changes. So that raises the question: what if one's approved and the other isn't? And then we may have some chaos still. We have chaos now. We may have chaos after that. So hopefully, if it does go to the residents, they see fit to change both of them at the same time.
Could you put both of them together?
Maybe, right? I mean, we could submit it that way. I don't know if the Board of Elections will accept it. They probably will, but it just depends.
Mr. Towsley, if I may,
Sure, please.
could you have language in both of them that states that if they're not both approved, then neither are approved?
Yeah, we could put a what would be an equivalent of
Survivor clause or
survival clause
something.
at the end of the ordinance that says that, so that we could say if it's not
Okay.
both approved, then neither is approved.
And then is this language, when I looked it up in the revised code, is it 735? Is that the section of the code do you know? Was I looking at the right thing? Does
Yes.
it sound right?
It's under service director.
Okay.
It's
all
under
right,
public
okay.
service.
I just wanted to
under
make
the
sure I
revised
was
code.
looking at the right place
Yes.
because it's
Yeah.
not necessarily my area of the law.
Right.
Thought it was under finance.
No. He's talking about in the Ohio Revised Code, Section
Oh.
735, which deals with service departments.
Okay.
It has this provision on Board of Control.
And that sets it. That's what sets it at the 50,000.
Yeah. Well, you're talking about competitive bidding.
Yes,
Where it also
competitive
has that
bidding.
section in there. Yes. Exactly right.
Okay.
Yes.
Oh, okay, so I guess I don't mind, but I still have a small concern
Yeah.
over 503B, just for the average voter. If they have the same question I did, is that going to hurt its chances?
Yeah, I don't. Yeah.
So
I mean,
that-
it's what we talked about last week, Mr. Towsley. I mean, these are written in legalese. and
Right.
You try to do your best to make the language plain and understandable, but what we have as a city versus what the residents have is experience applying it, right? And even if you read the words, you don't know what the implications are that we understand that they may not understand.
Just for comparison's sake, is it unusual for a city's Board of Control to contain council members?
Yes.
Okay.
It doesn't hurt anything. It's
No,
just
I
unusual.
realize that, but it's not.
It's
the
usually,
usual.
if you look at most cities, it's just administration members. They meet during the day,
Okay.
and it's just another approval along the way.
And if
either
that-
way, it's fine.
And if that happens, if this would happen, that would still be a meeting that would be open to the public.
Correct.
It would have to comply with all of the open meetings laws and all of that
Yes,
stuff.
exactly right.
Okay.
So you're still looking to take the council people out of the Board of Control?
And then it would still come before council if it was over the $5,000.
Yeah, I mean, that's only if you'd want to do 503A. That wasn't as big a concern to me as 503B. So I'm okay doing all 503. I think if you're asking what's the administrative priority, it's just to fix the procedure, and who's on the board doesn't concern us as much as fixing the procedure.
And that's what I thought. I didn't think that we were really talking about
That's
that.
up to you
here.
guys,
We'd
right?
skipped it.
That's-
My other question would be, and let me get this through my head. Okay, this is, how do we work with the Ohio Revised Code then? Because their limit's up to 50,000 now, correct?
Correct.
So if we reach something like 50,000, then it would have to go to competitive bidding.
If competitive bidding's required, see, here's the difference between this language and the revised code. Revised code competitive bidding is only required for certain types of contracts. Our language is every type of contract. So if it's above 25,000, doesn't matter what the contract's for, you have to competitively bid it. Under the revised code, it's a $50,000 limit, but it's only certain types of contracts that have to be competitively bid. So there's a difference that way too.
But this is saying 5,000, not 25.
Is that for Board of Control?
Approval of contracts, 5,000.
That's for Board of Control approval.
Okay, and then the other is, well, I'm looking for the 25,000 part.
Probably the simplest way to explain it would be, if it's over 5,000, no matter what the contract is, Board of Control has to approve it. If it's over 10,000, no matter what the contract is, council has to approve it.
Okay,
If the revised code requires competitive bidding, we also have to competitively bid it. That would be the new scheme that we'd work under. That way we know the rules, we know how to apply them, and it's not inconsistent.
So really what it comes down to is any contract over $10,000 in some manner or other has to be approved by both the administration through the Board of Control and the council.
Right.
Yes.
And you get two bites of that. You budget it and you actually
Right.
approve the contract.
Right.
So, and that's what we had talked about. We'd even be comfortable lowering the dollar amount where it comes to council too. If that's a better council control, that's okay. That's not what we're trying to evade. We're not trying to duck that. We're just trying to make sure we know what the rules are. Okay. And then the last section, and they really go together, Section 308, which deals with compensation of council. And I know this is going to be a little bit more of a controversial one, but here's why I think and the administration thinks it's important. Right now, the pension system, OPERS, they give service credit based on how much money you make on a monthly basis. And if, as a council member in Norton, you do not earn the right amount of monthly compensation to even qualify to earn a full pension year. So you're coming every week to council, you're putting in your extra time, but you're not earning pension credit. Why does that matter to the city, right? Because some people say, well, it's just voting on your own raise. Well, the reason it matters to the city is everyone in the city should be worried about having competent people who are willing to volunteer their time and get up there and run for council members. Maybe that gets you more competition in the future. But one of the perks of being a council member is you get pension credit, right? And if that's not even available, that limits the number of people who may be considering running for council. We want to increase that pool. Plus, I think it's just fair that if you're up there, you should be able to earn that credit long term. That's one of the things it's one of the reasons that you're serving, or one of the benefits of serving. The reason you're serving, the benefit of serving, is to be able to earn that pension credit. So that's the reason for the change. Other communities have done this. They've just changed their charter provision by charter to say whatever the full-time service credit amount is set by OPERS, that's the minimum salary. That way it doesn't have to go back to the voters every time. That's not a workaround. That's just making it administratively a little bit easier. So it's not you voting on your own salary increase over time. It's the state pension system who's really dictating what that salary is. And so that also would lead to a change under 202, which deals with the mayor's compensation. And that's the same argument there. You want people who are willing to run for mayor. It's a part-time position, but it works way more part-time. I can attest to that on behalf of Mayor Zita. You're not doing it for the money, but for the amount of time you're putting into it, you need to be compensated for it. And you do it the right way, and you should get paid for it, in my opinion, and also be able to earn that pension credit long-term. So right now, the mayor's in the same boat. He doesn't get to earn the pension credit under the current system, and that's locked. That's locked under the charter. So that's the proposal, right? I know it seems like it's benefiting the people up here, but there's a good administrative reason to do it, and I think good policy reasons to do it. So
And what year did that change?
2012 or 13, I think.
So no one here's been getting the full credit for the
That's
last
correct.
4 years?
Yeah, you get whatever,
Is,
3/4.
were they getting a percentage?
Nope.
Nothing.
What's
I'll check
going
it.
on?
I'll check it.
They were not grandfathered.
You-
I believe we got
No,
a
there's-
percentage.
You get a percentage, but you
Get a
don't.
percentage.
What you don't get, even if you get a percentage of the service credit, you don't get. It doesn't count towards healthcare eligibility.
Right.
So you have to earn at least $1,000 a month for that to count towards healthcare. So they may get 0.625 or 0.75, whatever your equivalent is, but you get 0 for healthcare eligibility.
Wow.
Yeah.
Also, could you explain, Justin, who would be eligible for any of these
Yeah, we're checking.
increases?
It's up. Okay.
If,
All of council.
no, I mean,
Just the new people coming in after it was
that's what I'm
passed.
getting at. If you want to explain,
Yeah. So actually, the way this is, this is
we're
up to.
voting on it, you know.
Yeah, this is how. Well, you don't because it's so. This is, right now it's down.
It's going, is there a storm?
Well, that. Oh, I hope not.
It looks just like that.
My windows are down.
I think this is a rather important subject.
I know. I don't want to.
Well,
I don't want to
well-
talk about this. Not off.
Right.
Yeah,
We'll take a
100%.
brief recess here while
go check and
we
make
play
sure
with the internet.
Yeah, that would be. Can't imagine the country see that.
I hope so.
Right.
Oh, yeah, good move.
I'll re-give my disagreement.
Giving their own selves raises. And we can't hear.
So not till 11.
That went down at
Yeah,
this point in time.
yeah, okay. Does that mean I can,
Of course, during.
can I go outside now and